All right, now we come to that was also the base web search. Now let's come to link structure analysis, which is most famously associated with PageRank. And this comes back to the issue we've already discussed, namely about relevance. And relevance depends on what the user really wanted. And there is the type of information that Wikipedia is aimed to answer, which is like when you do Roman Empire, you want to have a rich set of information about Roman Empire. One thing I use search engine for is spelling. I type a word at the search engine, and when I do type a single word at the search engine, usually the search engine is pretty clever. It knows I want to spell because it gives me the dictionary what I want to spell or check the exact meaning of. Sometimes in I forget things nowadays, and I want to check that I'm using a word in the right fashion. So I want the dictionary definition of the word. So I just type that word at the search engine. That's sort of informational. Navigational. Well, if I'm flying United.com, which I am about to do later today, to fly to Chicago from Indianapolis, I would want the United.com website. And that's finding home pages. This is an Israeli slide, and so for Israel, the airline is El Al. And another example here is I want to buy a camera or a battery or something like that. So you want to find results which are people that sell cameras. So you have to try to look at what's typed in and ask what the user really wants. So that's, if you like, if we view the query as data, we're trying to find what the information or knowledge behind that data is. The words in that query are the data, but remember, everything is data, information, knowledge. So we need some processing to find the knowledge implied by that query. So a pretty important idea is that of anchor text. We've already mentioned anchor text before. And so when you have a web page and you hyperlink another page to it, you have that hyperlink associated with some text on your page. So that is you're making page A, but you're referring to page B. And what you say when you hyperlink when you go to page 8 can often be pretty insightful as to why page 8 is useful or maybe not so useful. And so those anchor text is often very useful in defining page B and might actually give an overview of what's in page B more precisely than actually page B itself. So that's these so-called navigational queries. They use the anchor text to try to get back good answers. We will see a couple of famous results here, one for the query French military victories and the other for engine. Let's look at that. So we mentioned a couple of examples. One was the French military victories example. If you look at the first site returned for that, it actually is an example of a Google joke where you get French military defeats instead. And that is an example, somewhat flaky example of how the anchor text can overwrite the meaning of a page. The other example, I think, is a more sounder one. And if you type engine into Bing, then one of the returned items is Google. And the Google page does not have the word engine on it, but of course this is the Google search engine. So that points out that the way these search engines work, they've already got some hidden association between search an engine, so that when you type engine, it actually goes and looks for search engines. So that's a good example of what these search engines return is a relatively sophisticated result of analyzing what you really want. So this is partly quantified in this slide here. So as well as the anchor text, just what links to what is important. So because we're trying to find that when you type X, maybe you really meant Y, where X and Y are terms or phrases. And one way you can do that is through, say for anchor text, we're going from page A to page B. So that is in some sense, the idea of PageRank is that that's a recommendation of A's author that B is a great page. It's also an evidence that A and B share some topic of interest. We can also do it in a more complicated fashion by having a single page C. If it points to A and to B, there is some sort of link between A and B. They may actually be on different items because C could be a broad page and could cover various things, and it would point to A and B, but they're still probably related because C is probably a coherent discussion of something. So an early idea from Kleinberg was the concept of hubs and authorities, and those are still pretty important concepts. So authorities are things like Wikipedia or encyclopedia or dictionaries, which are pages containing authoritative content on a particular topic. That's often what you want, but one way of getting such authoritative information is to go to a hub, which is a list of multiple links, which each link of which is relevant to a particular topic. And so HITS was an early technology which took a topic and found you hubs and authorities. So that's an example of a data analytics, and modern search engines have such data analytics. And we won't discuss HITS, but we'll touch on related ideas later on in this unit. So here is Paramount.com, which is an authority for the query movies, because obviously Paramount is a big movie company, movie making company, I should say. Here is a hub, which is finding movies.html on the web, and I don't quite know this site, ENN, but it came from this. But obviously, what you see here, you actually see Paramount Pictures, Disney, 20th Century Fox, MGM, Sony, Universal. These are all famous movie companies. So this is an example of a hub, which is a hub for movies. And so when you type movie, getting such hubs is a good idea, because then you can see quickly what you might want.